My ex-wife said I abandoned my kids, until my 10-year-old pressed play, in front of 200 people. I'm sitting in the back of Roosevelt Elementary's packed auditorium, watching my ex-wife's new husband give a speech about stepping up when others fail. 200 parents nod along as he talks about being a hero to abandoned children. The principal keeps glancing back at me with that look. The one that says she knows I'm the deadbeat dad everyone's been whispering about. Then my 10-year-old son Jake walks to the podium, laptop in hand, and announces, "My project is called My Real Hero." He looks directly at me and presses play. The first image fills the giant screen. Me in my coaching uniform, arms around Jake's entire soccer team, beaming with pride. The auditorium goes dead silent. My ex-wife's face drains of color. Because for the next 5 minutes, Jake is about to destroy every lie she's told about me. When Sarah and I divorced 18 months ago, I thought we'd prioritize Jake above everything else. I was naive. Sarah got the house in the good school district, I got a studio apartment 30 minutes away. She got primary custody, I got alternating weekends and Wednesday dinners. What I didn't expect was the systematic campaign to erase me from my son's life. It started small. Sarah would schedule Jake's doctor appointments during my custody time, then tell the school I couldn't be bothered to show up. She'd sign him up for activities without consulting me, then shrug when I complained, "Well, Mark, if you were more involved, you'd know about these things." The irony was crushing. I was working 50 hours a week as an electrician to afford the child support payments that kept Jake in that good school district. Every dollar of overtime went toward his soccer fees, his equipment, his school supplies. But somehow, working to provide for my son meant I wasn't involved enough in Sarah's narrative. When she married Dave 6 months ago, things escalated. Dave was a real estate agent with flexible hours and a flashy BMW. Suddenly, Jake had a real father figure who could attend school events and parent-teacher conferences. Dave was happy to play the hero, posting Facebook photos of himself teaching Jake to ride a bike. Jake had learned at 5 with me, and taking credit for Jake's soccer skills. I'd been his coach for 3 seasons. The Facebook posts were particularly painful. "So grateful Jake finally has a male role model who shows up." Sarah would caption photos of Dave at Jake's games. Games where I was literally standing 20 feet away on the sidelines, having rushed from a job site still covered in electrical dust. But the worst part wasn't the lies Sarah and Dave told other people. It was watching my son start to believe them. "Dad, why can't you come to more of my games?" Jake asked during one of our Wednesday dinners at our usual spot. A little diner where the waitress knew to bring him chocolate chip pancakes without asking. "Buddy, I come to every game I'm allowed to. But sometimes Mom schedules things when." Dave says you just make excuses. I watched my 10-year-old son, the kid who used to run into my arms after every game, win or lose, look at me with doubt in his eyes. That's when I realized I wasn't just fighting for my reputation. I was fighting for my son's love. The lies got bolder. At Jake's school, teachers treated me like an inconvenience when I showed up for events. "Oh, we weren't expecting you," they'd say, even though I'd RSVP'd weeks earlier. "Sarah said you probably wouldn't make it." I started bringing printed copies of my RSVP confirmations, but it didn't matter. The damage was done. In their minds, I was the unreliable father who disappointed his son regularly. During parent-teacher conferences, Mrs. Chin would address all her comments to Sarah and Dave. "Jake's been struggling with some behavioral issues. He seems to be acting out because of instability at home." She wasn't talking about Sarah's house, where Jake lived with his mom, stepdad, and new baby sister. She was talking about the 2 weekends a month he spent with me, the father who'd never missed a child support payment, never canceled a custody visit, and drove 2 hours round trip just to watch his 10-minute soccer games. "What kind of behavioral issues?" I asked, leaning forward. Mrs. Chin barely glanced at me. "Well, he's been asking other students about their fathers a lot. Wanting to know if their dads come to their games, if they help with homework. It suggests some uncertainty about male role models." Dave nodded sagely. "We've noticed that too. It's hard when a child doesn't have consistent father figures." I bit back my response. Consistent? I'd been the most consistent thing in Jake's life since he was born. But arguing would only prove their point about my being difficult. The other soccer parents started avoiding me too. Dave had been busy telling everyone how he'd stepped up when Jake's real dad checked out. He'd show up to practices I was coaching, making comments loud enough for other parents to hear. "It's so great that Jake finally has consistent male role model." Or, "I just want him to know what it's like to have a dad who shows up." The worst incident happened at the team pizza party after we won the regional championship. I'd coached these kids to victory, spent every Saturday morning for 3 months drilling them on fundamentals and building their confidence. But when it came time for the team photo, Dave positioned himself next to Jake. "Come on, sport," he said loudly. "Let's get a picture with your team." Jake looked confused, glancing between Dave and me. "But Dad's the coach." "Dave's been like a father to you all season," Sarah interjected smoothly. "He deserves to be in the photo too." The other parents were watching, and I could see the narrative forming in their minds. The devoted stepdad who'd stepped in and the biological father who was being graciously included. I smiled for the photo, but inside I was dying. Every lie they told took a piece of my relationship with my son away from me. But the manipulation got more sophisticated. Sarah started scheduling family activities during my custody weekends. "I'm sorry, Mark, but Jake really wants to go to his cousin's birthday party on Saturday. You understand, right? Family comes first." "I'm his family too, Sarah." "Of course you are. But you have him every other weekend. This is a one-time thing." Except it wasn't. There was always something. Family barbecues, day trips, spontaneous adventures that just happened to fall during my time with Jake. When I complained, Sarah would sigh dramatically. "Mark, you're being selfish. Do you really want to be the father who makes his son miss out on fun activities just because of some arbitrary schedule?" The gaslighting was masterful. She made me feel guilty for wanting to spend time with my own son. I bit my tongue because fighting with Dave in front of Jake would only prove Sarah's point that I was unstable and angry. But inside I was dying. Every lie they told took a piece of my relationship with my son away from me. The breaking point came when the school announced Heroes Day. Each student would present a project about their personal hero, and families were invited to attend. Sarah called me the night before. "Mark, I think it's better if you don't come tomorrow. Jake's really excited about his presentation and your presence might confuse things." "Confuse things how?" "Well, Dave's giving a speech to the whole school about being a father figure to children who need one. It might be awkward if you're there." I felt my chest tighten. "Jake is my son, Sarah. I'm coming. Suit yourself. But don't say I didn't warn you when you're embarrassed." The threat was clear. Whatever Jake's presentation was about, Sarah expected it to humiliate me publicly. Part of me wondered if she'd coached him on what to say, turned my own son into a weapon against me. But I'd made Jake a promise and I'd never broken one yet. I almost didn't go. I sat in my car outside Roosevelt Elementary for 20 minutes, listening to Dave's voice boom over the PA system as he gave his opening remarks to the Heroes Day assembly. "Heroes come in many forms," he was saying. "Sometimes a hero is someone who steps into a child's life when they need it most, who shows up when others have given up, who proves that biology doesn't make a father, commitment does." The applause was thunderous. Through the window I could see parents nodding approvingly. Sarah was probably beaming in the front row, her perfect little family complete with her heroic husband who'd rescued poor Jake from his deadbeat biological father. My hands gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. This was it, the public humiliation Sarah had orchestrated. Dave's speech was the setup and Jake's presentation would be the knockout punch. How could I have been so naive to think my 10-year-old son could resist months of manipulation? I thought about all the times Jake had seemed distant during our Wednesday dinners lately. The way he'd fidget with his phone instead of telling me about school. The careful way he'd answer when I asked about his week, like he was choosing his words to avoid saying something wrong. "Dad, do you think I'm old enough to decide some things for myself?" he'd asked last month, and my heart had sunk. I knew what was coming. Sarah had probably been working on him, convincing him that he could choose to spend less time with me. "What kind of things, buddy?" Like, if I want to go to more of Dave's work events instead of other stuff. Other stuff. My custody weekends had become other stuff. I almost drove away. But then I remembered Jake's voice on our last phone call. "Dad, I'm doing my Heroes Day project about someone really special. You have to come see it, okay? Promise me you'll be there." "I promise, buddy." The hope in his voice when he'd said that. The excitement. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe. I'd never broken a promise to Jake and I wasn't about to start. Even if it meant watching him publicly declare that Dave was his real hero. Even if it meant sitting in that auditorium while 200 people learned exactly how much I'd failed as a father. I walked into that auditorium just as Dave was finishing his speech. The principal, Mrs. Rodriguez, spotted me immediately. Her expression shifted from professional smile to barely concealed pity. She knew the story, or at least Sarah's version of it. And so, Dave was concluding, we must remember that sometimes the greatest act of heroism is simply showing up. Day after day. Consistently. Putting a child's needs above our own comfort, our own convenience. More applause. I wanted to vomit. I found a seat in the back corner, trying to be invisible. But as students began presenting their projects, I realized Jake kept looking back at me, giving me small waves and smiles. Whatever his presentation was about, he wanted me to see it. My stomach churned with each passing moment. Was this part of Sarah's plan? Have Jake acknowledge my presence right before he demolished me? When they called his name, my heart stopped. Jake walked to the front with confidence I hadn't seen in months, carrying his laptop and a small remote. Please, I thought, please don't let this be what I think it is. My project is about my real hero, he announced to the packed auditorium. Some people think heroes have to be perfect, but my hero just has to love me no matter what. I closed my eyes, bracing for impact. Jake clicked his remote, and the projection screen filled with a video montage he'd clearly spent weeks creating. The first clip showed me on the sidelines of his soccer game last month, jumping up and cheering when he scored. The timestamp proved it was a game Sarah had told the school I'd missed because I didn't prioritize Jake. This is my dad coaching my soccer team, Jake narrated. He's coached me for 3 years, even when other people said he should quit. The next clip was security footage from the school pickup area. Footage I didn't even know existed. It showed me waiting in my car every single Wednesday for the past 6 months, right at 3:15. Sometimes waiting until 4:30 when Sarah was running late with Jake. My dad comes to pick me up every week even when Mom tells people he doesn't show up, Jake continued. The auditorium was getting uncomfortable quiet. But the real bombshell was the voicemail recording. Jake, buddy, it's Dad. My voice played over the speakers. I drove all the way over for our dinner tonight, but your mom says you're sick with the flu. I'm really sorry you're not feeling well. I left some soup and your favorite books with your mom. Call me if you need anything, okay? I love you. The timestamp showed it was from last Wednesday, the same night Sarah had posted on Facebook about Jake being disappointed again by his father's broken promises. I wasn't sick that night, Jake said quietly. Mom said Dad canceled, but he was actually outside waiting for me. I watched Sarah's face go white. Dave was staring at the screen like he'd seen a ghost. But Jake wasn't done. The final clip was audio only, playing over a photo of Jake looking sad. It was Dave's voice, recorded on what sounded like a phone call. Look, the goal is to make Jake understand that Mark isn't reliable. Dave's voice filled the auditorium. Every time Mark disappoints him, Jake gets closer to seeing me as his real dad. So if Mark shows up for something, we just reschedule it. Eventually, Jake will stop expecting him to be there. The silence in that auditorium was deafening. Sarah shot to her feet. Jake, stop this presentation right now. This is inappropriate and... No, Mom. Jake's voice cut through her protests, stronger than I'd ever heard it. I'm tired of lying for you. I'm tired of pretending Dad doesn't love me when he shows me every day that he does. Dave was trying to pull Sarah toward the exit, but she was frozen, watching her lies crumble in real time in front of 200 people. Mrs. Rodriguez stood up from the front row. Mrs. Patterson, Mrs. Williams, I think we need to have a private conversation about this situation. This is all taken out of context, Sarah stammered. Jake doesn't understand. I understand perfectly, Jake interrupted, and his voice carried a dignity that silenced the entire room. I understand that you and Dave have been lying about my dad because you want people to think Dave saved me. But I didn't need saving, Mom. I needed you to stop trying to take my dad away from me. Jake looked directly at me. Dad, I'm sorry they made you think I didn't want to see you. I've wanted to see you every day. I was crying. I'm not ashamed to admit it. In front of 200 people, I was crying like a baby because my son, my brave, incredible son, had just fought for our relationship harder than I'd ever dared to. The custody hearing was expedited, set for 3 weeks out. But Sarah surprised everyone by requesting mediation instead of going to court. Her lawyer had clearly explained how damaging Jake's presentation would look to a judge. The mediation was brutal. Sarah sat across from me, her lawyer beside her, looking like a woman whose entire world had crumbled. For a moment I almost felt sorry for her. "I never meant for it to go this far," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "What did you mean for it to do?" I asked. She was quiet for a long time. "I was hurt, Mark. When we got divorced, I felt like you were moving on with your life while I was stuck dealing with everything. When Dave came along, he made me feel supported. And when Jake responded so well to him, it felt like validation that I'd made the right choices. So you decided I should be erased?" I thought it would be easier for Jake if he had one stable father figure instead of being confused between two. Confused? Sir, I'm his father. Not his babysitter, not his backup plan. His father. The mediator, a calm woman named Dr. Martinez, intervened. "Sarah, can you see how your actions might have harmed Jake's relationship with his father?" Sarah's lawyer whispered something to her. She nodded reluctantly. I can see that now. After watching his presentation, I realize how much damage I've done. The agreement we reached gave me primary custody, with Jake living with me 4 nights a week and spending weekends with Sarah. Dave was required to step back from any parental role until Jake was comfortable with the new arrangement. Sarah agreed to attend co-parenting therapy and to make no disparaging comments about me to Jake or anyone else. But the real victory wasn't the legal one. It was watching Jake's personality return. The anxious, confused kid who'd been torn between believing his mother's lies and trusting his own experiences was gone. In his place was the confident, happy boy I remembered, the one who knew his dad loved him unconditionally. 2 weeks after he moved in with me, Jake was helping me paint his new bedroom when he said something that broke my heart and put it back together at the same time. "Dad, I'm sorry I ever believed them about you. I stopped painting." "Jake, you have nothing to apologize for. You were a kid caught between adults who weren't acting like adults. But I should have known better. You never missed my games. You never forgot to call. You were always there. And you know what? When it mattered most, you were there for me too. You saved our relationship, buddy. I couldn't have done what you did." Jake now lives with me 4 nights a week and spends weekends with Sarah. He's back to his old self on the soccer field, and his grades have improved dramatically. Most importantly, he's not carrying the weight of his mother's lies anymore. The relationship with Sarah is still strained, but it's improving. She's been consistent with therapy, and for the first time since our divorce, we're actually communicating about Jake's needs instead of scoring points against each other. "Dad," he told me last week while we were working on his science project together, "I'm never going to let anyone tell lies about our family again." "You shouldn't have to, buddy. That's my job." "Maybe it's our job," he said. "We're a team, right?" "Right. The best part?" Jake asked if he could join the school's AV club. "I want to learn more about making videos," he said. "You never know when you might need to document the truth." I laughed, but inside I was incredibly proud. My son had learned one of life's most important lessons: that truth is worth fighting for, even when the adults around you aren't brave enough to tell it. If you're a parent dealing with alienation from your children, don't give up hope. Kids are smarter than manipulative adults give them credit for. They know real love when they see it, and they know when someone is trying to twist their feelings for someone else's benefit. Document everything. Show up anyway. Love consistently even when it's being used against you. And trust that the truth has a way of revealing itself, sometimes through the bravest person in the room. A child who refuses to let adults destroy something precious. To the teachers, coaches, and school administrators watching this, please remember that custody situations are complex. Don't take one parent's word as gospel, and don't let your assumptions about family dynamics cloud your judgment about what's really in a child's best interest. And to the kids out there who are being put in the middle of adult conflicts, you don't have to choose between loving your parents. Real love doesn't ask you to hate someone else to prove your loyalty. Hit that like button if you believe children deserve relationships with both parents. Share this if you know a parent fighting for their kids against a system of lies. Comment below if you've ever had to choose between believing what adults told you and trusting what you could see with your own eyes. Jake taught me that heroes aren't perfect people who never face obstacles. Heroes are people who keep showing up with love, even when others are working overtime to convince everyone that love doesn't exist. Never underestimate a kid's love. And never underestimate their courage when they decide to fight for what matters. Who is the real villain here? I think that's pretty clear.